Hi, this is Rabbi Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Whether you watch with our friends over at Tony Time or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, as always, excited to have you along for the experience. And we have a sponsor for this episode. Hi, Rebbi. Miss you and your family. I look forward to every episode and share you give. Hashem should give you strength and financial assistance. Amen. To continue your great work. Thank you for encouraging us to be a part of it. Your friend and Talmud forever, Moshe Grossman. Moshe, we love you. And my whole family loves you. He was a Talmud of ours. And, you often graduate from being a Talmud to being a friend, and he's a dear friend, and my kids love him, and he used to come by and drive them crazy. Anyway, but it's great to hear from you, and you should just go mechal chayot to all kinds of wonderful and good things. Thank you for this. Okay, I heard a story many years ago, and I don't know if it's true, but as we've established many times on this podcast, I'm not Pesach grown. I don't check out my stories. I just talk and, But I heard a story that when Reb Chaim Shmulevitz was giving Mussar Shmuz in the Mir Yeshiva. Now, I realize that every now and then I get an email from someone who says, there are people who are listening to this show with either very little background or who might not be Jewish and don't always get all of your references. So there was a Mussar movement that was started by Yisrael Salanta in the 1800s. And part of it was that there would be, part of the yeshiva program, there would be talks given on ethical behavior and development. So Mussar, which is this area of study of ethical and personal development, a shmooze is Yiddish for talk. In Hebrew, they call it a sicha, a conversation. So he used to give Mussar talks. They were gathered together into a sefer called Sichos Mussar by Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, and they're gems. Every one of them is a gem. But I heard this story, and like I said, I don't know if it's true, but no reason I shouldn't say it over. So apparently, he gave a shmooze, and the next week he gave the same shmooze, and the next week he gave the same shmooze. So by that point, even the slowest began to figure out that, hey, he's repeating himself. So one of the boys said, Rebbi, you said this already. He said, in Mussar, they have a concept called anoch daher. Anoch daher means to hear it again. Hear it again. A lot of Mussar is based on the fact not merely of saying over something that is novel, a chiddush, but of repeating the same thing. I've told this story in the past. Somebody once asked Rabbi Moshe Shapiro, how did you become Rabbi Moshe Shapiro? And he said, I was in Panovich, and there was a blackout. Okay, so we couldn't learn in the base medrash. Well, we went outside. I was with my friends, and I heard somebody was still learning inside. And I peeked through the window, and it was Reb Dessler. And he's sitting there saying over a chazal, quote from the sages. And he said it again. And he said it again. And he said it again. So after 20 times, we started to wonder. 30 times, we started to giggle. 40 times, I started to get afraid. And at 50 times, I had tears coming down my face. Because in that moment, I realized the power of a chazal if you take the time to look for it. But it means you have to hear it. You have to work on it. The Mesilas Yesharim says, I did not write this sefer to teach chidushim. Rather that it's a tool to help you change your life, and that's only going to come about through constant review. An interesting idea. The fact is that there's an intellectual understanding, but it takes a tremendous amount of work to make that an emotional reality. That's what the pasuk means when it says, "Yodata hayom v'hashevose elavavecha." Know it today and place it on your heart. Because everybody knows things intellectually, but to be able to make it an emotional reality takes a tremendous amount of effort to make it real. I'll give you an example. My father smoked for maybe 50 years. And then he had a massive heart attack. He stopped smoking. 2 of my brothers smoked. And after their heart attacks, they stopped smoking. So what happened? They were stuck in the hospital with nothing to do. So they decided to read the Surgeon General's report. And they were like, oh my gosh, it turns out smoking's bad for you. No, they knew it. They just didn't believe it. It wasn't an emotional reality. More than once, I've heard from people who say, I know there's a God, I just don't believe it. It happens to be a very profound statement. Intellectually, I can show you that there's a God, that there has to be a God, but it's not a part of my life. The way somebody said to me once goes, I know there's a God like I know there's a planet Pluto. Turns out to be ironic in retrospect because Pluto is no longer a planet. It's been deplanetized. Sorry to say. Turns out it's just another large object in the Kuiper belt at the edge of the solar system. More's the pity for you Pluto fans. Goofy's still there, but Pluto has been removed. Arf. Anyway, so people know something, but to be able to make it a reality? Yeah. And that's why people are inconsistent. It's very easy for us to lose perspective. Let me tell you, 1986, I went to Los Angeles. I had a NCSY chapter in LA. And one of my kids was getting married, and I decided to go out for the Shabbos Shabbat brachas. It's an interesting experience because at the end, Friday night, and we were all hanging out, we were talking. So I said, everyone has a way to get home? They looked at me and they said, Orlo, that's what they used to call me back then. Orlo, I'm the youngest one here and I'm 23. We can get home by ourselves. You never grow up. You never grow up. I was a somewhat successful speaker in my 50s. And I saw my mother, went to visit her, and she's like, that's a nice outfit. Don't get it dirty. I already had something of a career. I was children, I was like, I should be able to keep myself clean at that point without my mom tucking in a napkin, But okay. Anyway, so while I was there, for research purposes, I decided to go to Disneyland. This was 1986, just to see what the experience was so I could use it for educational material. Now, you might think that that's not true, but you know that I took a few of my kids when I went in LA to Warner Brothers Studios, and I actually filmed myself on the bat cycle, saving Gotham City, and I used that on the podcast so that it was tax deductible. This is all research, yeah. Anyway, so I was. I went, and they had just opened this attraction called the Haunted Mansion. Okay. It was okay. It's sort of like the Pirates of the Caribbean kind of a thing where you take a little ride through this building and you see different things. And every now and then they have a little drop in your little boat there or car, just to, Anyway, at the end, as you're leaving, there are signs up that says, don't pick up any hitchhiking ghosts. Okay? I think that's good advice under normal circumstances. But as we're going and we're leaving, so the little car passes by this mirror, and there's me, and there's my wife, and sitting in between us is a ghost, waving. And I turn down to look. Of course, there's no ghost there. And I look back in the mirror, and he winks at me. And I look a second time. And he's still not there. But the illusions of this world are such that they suck us in and you don't even realize it. And that's why it's only constant review, says the Mesil Shasharm, that allows us to move beyond the limitations of this world to be able to see reality. And that's what I think Rav Chaim Shmulevitz was trying to say. In Musar, it's not just, I gave you another clever idea and another clever idea. It's a nocha daher. You have to hear it again until it becomes reality. And even after it becomes reality, you can forget and get sucked back into the illusion. And people do all the time. I'm sure I told this story at some point, but every now and then I meet somebody who has listened to all of my podcasts and all of my shiurim, and they know them all bal peh, and they quote me back lines and things that I've said. Or sometimes I share and they said, yeah, you said that already. You said this already. I heard this already. Okay. But most people I don't think are ad kedei kach, so, I can repeat a story here or there. I know certain famous speakers who only have 6 stories and they say them over and over again. So, in any event, this woman who was in Neve Yerushalayim, I don't know if I want to say girl, but a woman who was in Neve Yerushalayim, writes me and says, listen, I was in Neve Yerushalayim with a good friend of mine, and we both became Shomer Shabbos. And, we decided this was true, etc. And we decided to do it. And then we come back to America, and it's hard to keep going unless you've put yourself into a different situation. Anyway, she slipped back into her old lifestyle. And she was clubbing and partying and doing all kinds of activities. I'm sure you can use your imagination. Actually, I'm not sure because I have a lot of real Yirei Shemayim who listen to this podcast and probably have no idea what I'm talking about. But Miss Stammet, she was probably missing mincha. Anyway, but whatever it is, yeah. And it's a challenge, needless to say. So her friend was trying to be mechazik her, was trying to tell her, listen, you know what the truth is. And listen to what her friend says. She says, you're right. I know what I'm doing is wrong. But I'll give you an example. I'll explain it to you with an example. There's a guy who stays in prison so long until he loses his mind. He doesn't know what real is anymore. And he thinks that the rats that are running around in his cage are his friends. And he has fun playing with the rats. He's having a good time because he's lost his mind. So the jailer feels bad for him. At this point, it doesn't even pay to keep this guy in prison. It's just a waste of time. He says, look, clean out the latrines for a week and I'll let you go free. And he says, why? The latrines are dirty and they're smelly. I like it here. I like the rats. The rats are my friends. She says, I know what I'm doing is wrong. And I know that it doesn't make any sense, but I'm happy. I'm happy. My friend says, what do I say to her? I said, the only thing you can say is that at some point the lights come back on. And I only know one story like the story that she's describing. And that was A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. And in A Tale of Two Cities, Dr. Manette, who's in the Bastille, we don't know why until the end of the book, but he's in the Bastille, and he stays there so long he loses his mind, and he thinks he's a shoemaker. And he just sits there all day working at a make-believe bench, make-believe shoes, making shoes all day. That's what he does. Eventually, his daughter, Lucy, manages to rescue him and bring him across to England, and he gets his mind back. How do you think he feels about all the time that he spent living this make-believe life? I mean, he's got to look back at it and say he's crazy. At some point, the lights are going to come back on. Because you just can't party forever. And you reach a certain point when you're in your 50s and your 60s. And these exciting years as a teenager and in your 20s, they're way behind you. And no one's interested in you anymore. And while your friends might be enjoying their children and grandchildren, you have nothing. What happens when I'm 70? Must come a time, 70, when you're old and it's cold, and who cares if you live or you die? That was Fagin from Oliver. That was one of my best roles. Thank you very much. In camp, I played Fagin. Classic. But anyway, you turn around and suddenly there's nothing there, but you've lived this illusion and you think that it's real. You've dedicated your whole life to this. And you suddenly find out that you're wrong. And you just bought into the illusion. And I'm sitting here looking at this ghost, which I see in the mirror, but I know intellectually isn't there. And that's what happens. People allow themselves to get sucked into illusions, and they live a life of dimion, of imagination, of make-believe. Come with me to a world of total imagination. Yeah, everything's make-believe. And so therefore we have to work very hard to keep our focus on what is real. So all of this is by way of introduction, because I've said something, must be 30 years now, maybe close to 30 years probably. I said it many years ago. And I have gotten such tremendous feedback over the years. Somebody, when I used to write columns for the Hamodia, so I wrote this up once in a column, and someone said it changed my life. There were so many different people who said this. So although I'm sure a lot of people have heard this from me, I think it bears some repetition. And that's the following. In our tefillah series, we talked about the fact that there's 3 different types of things you can do with a tefillah: shevach, bakosha, and haidah. Praising Hashem, asking for things, and thanking Hashem. And I said, a person who never thanks for anything never really enjoys anything, because you never appreciated the fact that you had them. You need the thank yous in order to realize that, wow, I got something. And someone who can't say thank you, and just, when children were little, I used to travel a lot to America. I'd come back with suitcases filled with stuff, and kids would get whatever it was, clothes and gifts, and the pile was bigger than they were. And the answer was, anything else? Pesach Krohn tells the story about this woman goes to a fruit store, and the man gives the little boy a banana. And the mother says, "What do you say?" And he says, "Peel it." You don't have any appreciation? Want to hear a terrible story? Sure you do. I may have told this, I don't know, but it was It made a deep impression on me at the time, and every time I think about it, I get annoyed all over again. This father had a daughter who married a boy who wanted to learn, and he supported them in Eretz Yisrael. Yeah. And paid their rent, and gave them money for food and for expenses and to go out, and fine. And for years they were learning. And at some point, the boy decided he wanted to come back to America, and he wanted to go to college. He decided he wanted to go to law school. And he said to his wife, tell your father that he should pay for my college and for the law school. Now, he didn't say, Mehechatesa, it's one thing I was supporting you sitting and learning Torah, but I should pay for your college education. He said, okay. It's okay. He says he wanted to go to NYU. He says, look, I'm not going to pay for a private university. Go to a state school, and I'll pay for that. And the son-in-law became so incensed that he broke off relations. And they never talked to her parents again. Kafui Tov. That's the level of appreciation? Yeah. Nothing? I didn't get what I wanted, so therefore I'm not talking to you? Yikes. I'm sure they told everybody that he's abusive or whatever else they told him, because that's what we say today. When we have the midah of kafui tov, as Rashi says, that the first chait, Adam Rishon says, it's the woman, the wife that you gave me. He says that Kadosh Baruch Hu, it was a kafui tov. Yeah, denying good to have a sense of appreciation. It's it just makes you less of a person. It makes you less of a human being if you can't appreciate. And a person who does appreciate, they live in a different world. They live in a world where their life is filled with good things. So I started this maybe 30 years ago, that 3 times a day when I daven, I do it right at the beginning. Because as we've established many times, I have ADD and I wander. My mind wanders from thing to thing and I forget what I'm saying. And so to be able to maintain kavanah for all of davening, people have pointed out, this is probably more appropriate in modim, and I don't disagree. But I do it right at the beginning. When I come to the words, Gomel chasodim tovim, and he bestoweth loving kindness, I stop and I think, like what? I think of something good. V'konei hakol, and it all comes from you. 3 times a day. 21 times a week. 365 times 3. A year. For 30 years. I sit down and I count my chasadim. I try not to repeat. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't repeat the same thing in a different context. So if I almost got into an accident, and I thank Kodesh Baruch for that, the next time I almost get into an accident, I can't say, well, I've already done that one. Yeah, I mentioned that one again. I was on the express aisle. It's only 10 items, and somebody had a whole cartload of things. And I said, it's only 10 items. He goes, it is. I've got fruits and vegetables. I've got canned goods. I've got dried. It doesn't work that way. Each thing is a separate item. You can't just count categories, So I'll repeat it again. If I get on a plane and I have an empty seat next to me, I'll thank Kadosh Baruch Hu each time for that separately. Yeah. Even though it's happened more than once. It has changed my entire approach to life because I live a truly blessed life. Most people don't realize it. Someone said to me, why does Kodesh Baruch Hu do so many bad things to me? I said, he doesn't. He does so many good things for you, but you take credit for that. When something good happens, you figure it's because I'm so smart, or I was this, or I was that, When something bad happens, you pin it on God, and it doesn't work that way. You're going to blame HaKadosh Baruch Hu when things go wrong, then you got to give him credit when things go right. And that's what I do. I really try to focus on the good in my life 3 times a day. And I've given this exercise to people. And like I say, over the years, I've gotten many people. I mention this because I only recently got an email that I really wanted to share with everybody. I asked permission if I could share it. So I read you the email. Years ago, when you were in Gateways, Rabbi Orlofsky discussed what to do by Gomel Chasodim Toivim. Now, we just discussed that. I said it over. I say it over more than once. Every year, I challenge my students to make a list of things that they appreciate that they have in their lives. I then print out the list, and I have them choose one item to thank Hashem by each Shmona Esrei. Amazing. Please note, although I'm an 8th grade Rebbi and a 4th grade English teacher, I do this with both grades. And this list is for my 4th graders and is unedited except for spelling. This year, I divided my 29 students into 5 groups. And this is the list that they came up with. Without realizing it, you continue to inspire thousands of students worldwide. Of course, I always share with them that I got the idea from you, Kol Tov, Yitzi Muller, 8th grade Rebbe, 4th grade English teacher, Yeshiva Spring Valley. I have the list here. We're going to put them up. Group A has 204 things. Group B has 306 things. Group C has 250 things. And Group D has 82 things. And Group E has 275 things. This is 4th graders. Nobody probably, I didn't read through the whole list, but nobody probably wrote down my IRA. Nobody probably wrote the nachas I get from my children and my grandchildren. I just start running through this. I'm reading Team A over here at random. Neck, body, drains, zoos, ices, yeah, milk, clouds, thunder, police, linen, oil for cooking and oil for fuel, dessert, diamonds, wood, amazing thing. Rye bread, that's one people forget. Rain, Gedolim, books, honey, apples, friends, Sidurim, pizza, paprika. I'm pulling things out here at random here. Pickles. By the way, I just have to share this with you. I used to go to Osher Ad, and they used to have this big vat of pickled vegetables that I used to bring home, and I really enjoyed them. And it was mostly cabbage, which is, of course, very low cal. And the pickled vegetables are also good for your digestion. And I used to buy them all the time, and they stopped carrying them. So my good friend Yitzi Shapiro lent me a couple of pickling jars. And I made my own pickled vegetables, and they were great. It's so easy. I couldn't believe how easy it is. And they came out really, really good. So I decided here in Eretz Yisrael, we do not have half sour pickles. Now, they import from America, you can get pickles, sour pickles, but not half sour, which makes sense because half sour pickles, if you leave them too long, they become sour. So it's hard to do. So I made my own half sour pickles, and wow, I have to throw that into my Shemona Esrei. I didn't even think about it. And they came out. People were shocked how good they came. They taste like American half sour pickles. They're small ones. They're not like the real Kirby's that you need to make the real pickles. But okay, it's good enough. Trust me. And now I have those. I mentioned pickles. I didn't even think of that one. I have to mention that. Yeah, memory. Yeah, I forget that one. Daf yomi, refrigerator, sleep, blood, trees, falafel, poison control. I wonder what kid wrote that and why. A mother, a father. I just had your side for my mother and father. Comes Yontif and there's nobody to call. Satellites. What a deep cut. I never stop to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the fact that there are satellites up there, even though it makes obviously all communication possible and all those wonderful things. Rashi. What a great one. Snow. Garbage trucks. That's a good one. Yeah. Peaches, pears, pineapples, watermelon. It goes on. I encourage everybody to try this. Make a list of all the things that you want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for. Just sit down and think. Now, I have to tell you, there is a certain artificialness to it when I started. So you see, like in this list, you go through body parts, you go through, wood, that's nice. Glass is a good thing, Stained glass, very pretty, And then something hits you and you look at your life and you suddenly see something, not something esoteric, but something that happened in your life that's like, wow. Thank you, Hashem. When you live your life that way, you see a lot more. And I don't know if it's because of my own consciousness or because I'm conscious of it, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does it for me more than perhaps for the average person. I don't know. But people who are with me often say, wow, that was unbelievable, siyata d'shmaya. And I was like, nah, Hashem does stuff like that for me all the time. And he does. And a lot of things he does for other people, but because they don't notice them. So let's face it, a person who's appreciative, you want to do more for them. That's just the nature of things. And so the more that we appreciate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to give us things. I spoke to a young woman once who had a few children, and she was very upset because she wanted to have more children and she couldn't. And she was becoming very bitter. And I said, here's the rule. People will say thank you, you're more likely to give them more. So if you keep complaining to HaKadosh Baruch Hu how you don't have more children, that's not a good way to get more children. When you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the children that you have, then you're more likely to have more children. This is apparently a Hasidic story because it has an ending. She had more children. But, usually my stories are Litvish stories. They have no ending. But this one actually has an ending. So take time to appreciate what you have, because then you live a different life. You have a life that is filled with bracha and good things, and you just end up saying thank you over and over again. And that brings us to the question and answer portion of our program. We haven't been able to do this in a while, the question and answers. And somebody asked me how you choose, and the answer is obviously we can only do a few questions each time, and we don't always get to do the question and answer. And we have a sponsor for this week's question and answer, sponsored by Anonymous. Thank you for continuing to inspire us, by Anonymous. First question. When the Kollel Lifestyle was instituted, did the Rabbanim have in mind that it's better for a baby to be taken care of by a babysitter than its mother, so she can work to support his learning? How is that in line with the Torah sources that a mother should nurse a child till age 2? I'm struggling to understand this, looking for clarity. Thanks for this platform. I don't know. I don't understand it. I don't think it's good for a child to be separated from their mother. I'll give you an example. When at the beginning of Bamidbar, Moshe Rabeinu was counting all the Jews, so he did it face to face. But when it came to Shevet Levi, he had to count them from a month onwards. I had to count babies. And Rashi says, Moshe Rabbeinu said, Kodesh Baruch Hu, how am I supposed to go into a tent where there's a mother with a baby? That's not Sanua. I can't do that. So Hashem says, you do your part, I'll do my part. You go to the tent, and the Baskol will come out and say how many babies there are in this tent, so you don't have to go in. When I saw that Rashi, I thought to myself, why doesn't the father just take the baby and bring him out? The answer is because the place for a baby is in his mother's arms. And that's why in Bahaloischa, when Moshe Rabbeinu says that I give birth to these children, am I their nursemaid, that I have to carry them around in my arms like a baby? The answer is yes. So that's the place where a baby belongs. Are there other considerations? Of course there are other considerations. But to set up a system, a young mother, it took her a long time to have a baby. And her husband was learning and she was supporting him. And she called me up and she was in tears. And she says, I had my maternity leave. And now I'm supposed to go back to work and leave my baby. And she was in tears. She goes, you can't tell me to leave my baby. That's not right. I've waited so long for this child. How can you tell me to leave my baby? I don't know what to tell her. I don't know how you tell somebody to leave their baby. So there's some mothers, and there are some babies, that everybody's very happy to leave. Do I think it is a flawed system that demands that mothers not raise their own children and not nurse their babies if they want to? Obviously, I'm not advocating that everybody has to nurse their children, but a mother who wants to nurse a child and we tell her no, go out and work. Do I think there's something flawed with that system? Yes. I don't know. My wife nursed all of our children, and I encouraged it. I said, I would love to get up in the middle of the night and give the baby a bottle, but I don't want to come between that bond between you and the baby. And so I really encourage you to nurse the baby until they're old enough to go to school by themselves, and I'm not involved. Selfless, because I'm selfless. That's how I am. But we were in a position to be able to do that. Some people were not in a position to be able to do that. So do I think it's a kasha on the system? Yes, it is. And it's not the only kasha on the system. There's an old expression, sometimes you buy something and it says one size fits all. And I remember seeing it said one size fits all fits nobody. And when you have a situation where every guy has to sit in yeshiva and learn, and every girl has to support a boy who's sitting and learning, and there's no room really for variation and differences, I think you're going to end up with a flawed system. So do I think it's flawed? It is. Do I have a solution? I don't. The only thing I can say is you can try to find something that allows you to work from home so that you can be there with your children and, have the best of both worlds. So what does that involve? So my travel agent, her husband was learning for many years. She was a very good travel agent. She worked from home. She stayed home with whoever the baby was. And she stopped working at 1 when the kids came home from Gan, the younger children. And that was because to be with her children, she felt was more important. But luckily, she was very good at it. There's certain people like this, where they have something they can do at home, Some women become a sheitel macha for that reason. So they can stay with the children, at the same time, take care of whatever needs to be taken care of. People who, arrange drug smuggling operations. A lot of that you can do from home. People are just kidding. It's a joke. Okay, next question by Anonymous. Did Moshe Rabeinu and Tzipora have shalom bayis? Absolutely. Tzipora knew what she was getting into. You don't marry a Moshe Rabeinu who, I think it was the Shlah, a Kaddish, who says it was an act of nevuah to see Moshe Rabeinu. He was not a regular person. Don't marry a gadol if you don't want to be a gadol's wife. And give that a lot of thought. You know the old story, and that is that very often they feel it was the wife who made them into a gadol, as opposed to them having to work around the woman. And you have to have somebody who's getting in and knows what I'm doing here. So when your husband comes home from the sheep and says, honey, there was this burning bush and God spoke to me and he wants me to go down to Egypt and save the Jews. And she's like, yeah, okay. I hear that, They're on the way down to Egypt and a giant snake swallows up her husband. It's like, okay, you're dealing with somebody else here. Tzipora is a bird, because a bird is closer to Shemayim. And that's why it had to be a Tzipora who married a Moshe Rabeinu. So you don't have shalom bayis when you have two people who are not dedicated to the same thing. So if people have different visions as to what their life should be and what their home should be and what their children should be, that's when you don't have shalom bayis. But in the ideal case of shalom bayis, it's not about me and it's not about you, it's about us. There's a powerful chazal that says the following, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and it focuses on Elisheva. Elisheva, who is Aaron's wife. And she says, this is the happiest day of her life. She's seeing her husband become the Kohen Gadol. She's seeing her children become Kohanim. She sees her brother, Nachshon, bringing the first korban in the Chanukas HaMizbeach. It's like, wow. She sees her brother-in-law becoming the Melech. And then Nadav and Avihu die. But it's like, Elisheva has to be somebody who can appreciate, my husband's the Kohen Gadol, my children are Kohanim. We're living a life of Kedusha. It's a different type of a lifestyle. And if you want to have a more relaxed lifestyle, marry Dussin. Obviously, when you're going to marry someone like Dussin Aviram, life's going to have its ups and downs. Sorry there. Little Korach humor. Okay. By Anonymous, I have ADHD and I often forget what I hear in Shiurim. I love listening to Shiurim and I feel very discouraged when I don't remember anything because I want to implement in my life what I have learned. But I can't if I don't remember. Do you have any tips or advice for me? So I don't have ADHD, I have ADD. And I have the same problem. I definitely have the same problem. So two things you have to remember. The first one is, as it says in Pirkei Avos, Lefum Tzara Agra. You get rewarded for the effort. And that's why the Chavetz Chaim says, Pshat, what we say when we finish a Masechta, Anu Amelim V'hem Amelim. Anu Amelim Mekam Schar, Hem Amelim Enu Mekam Schar. We work and they work. We work and get reward. They work and they don't get reward. As the Chavetz Chaim, of course they get reward. They get paid. They make money. He says they only get paid for results. So you have somebody who's a shoemaker and you give him an order for a very specialized pair of shoes and he spends a week on it. And then he comes back and says, I couldn't make the shoes. Here's my bill. You're like, what? He said, well, I had to buy materials. I spent a whole week on it. I'm entitled to something. He says, no, you get paid for a product. We pay for goods and services, not for good intention. But you spend a week trying to figure out Pshat in the Gemara and you never get it. You get a week worth of schar. You get a week worth of reward for the effort, not just for the results. So you have to know that if you try, that's the key. You know? And I've said this more than once. What I would like to write on my mitzvah is he tried. Not even that he succeeded, just that he tried. If I could at the end of my life say he tried, you know, I think that's catchier than he's nowhere as bad as he could have been. But it is the same basic concept. So that's number one. Number two is, between my ADD and my dyslexia and all my other difficulties, my focusing problem and things, learning was impossible for me. So I went around to a number of mechanchim who I respect. And I said, what do I do? And the amazing thing was they all gave me the same answer. They said, learn 100 daf Gemara and chazer it until you know it. Well, this was very hard because the chavrusa doesn't help me here. When I used to be in yeshiva, I'd have the chavrusa read, and then I could come up with 25 shotim in what they were reading. But I have to now do the reading. And I sit there and I look up every word and I piece it together line by line, painfully, until I more or less understand the Mishnah. And then I start in the Gemara. And so at one point I was writing out all the Gemara. What's the question? What's the answer? Where does it come from? And I reached the bottom of the page. I forgot everything. And I started again. And I did it again. And I kept doing it until I was able to say it over. And then I did the next Amud. And I did the same thing. And then I went back and I chazered the entire daf. And then I started the next daf. I did the same thing. And every time I would forget, I'd have to go back to the beginning, start again, start again, start again. By 40 daf, I saw a major change. And by 60 daf, I more or less had it beat. To the point that today I give a daf yomi, which is mind-boggling, considering all of the many limitations that I have. And I still forget. I forget all the time. When I'm in the middle of talking, I forget what I'm saying. I lose my place. I don't remember. I have to go over it and go over it. Anytime you hear me quote something, you understand, I had to say that to myself 100 times just to remember it. Because I forget it. And with my dyslexia, I turn it back into English and I can't remember it in Hebrew. And I work very hard. Can it be done? It can be done. Is it daunting? Yeah. Impossible? Nah. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work and a lot of confidence. Because if you don't have confidence, you're going to give up. You just say, it's too hard for me. So just got to put one foot in front of the other. Anonymous. In a 13-month Hebrew year, why is it Adar that the month that gets doubled and not a second Tishrei or Teves? I'm going to give you two answers. One is pragmatic, and the other one is more philosophical. The first one is that we have a set calendar. They did not have a set calendar. And therefore, because the lunar year is 354 days, more or less, depending on the year, and the solar year is 365 days, more or less. So you lose about 11 days every year, which means that in 3 years, you'll be a month behind. Now, that's a problem because we call Pesach Chodesh HaAviv. It has to come out in the springtime. And so we have to have a leap year where we add another month. How would they determine that? And one of the things they would determine is the harvest. And so you wait close to the harvest. You know, Pesach is when you harvest the barley, and Shavuos is when you harvest the wheat. And they would have to go and see how the crops are doing, how the seasons are doing, and based upon that, they would add an extra month. So obviously, since the Jewish year, for our purposes, starts in Nisan, that's when it comes to figuring out the months, etc. So it's the last month, and the Torah, Adar is, of course, the 12th month. That's the one that we're going to add. We're going to add another month to be able to extend this year only at the end. You don't do it by Tishrei. I don't know what the year is going to look like. And you wait to the end of the year before you're about to reach the harvest time, and that's when you make it. That's pragmatic. Another reason is that, Adar is the best month. Adar is the mazel of Adar is such a good month. It's such a wonderful thing. And so obviously, if you got to double a month, you don't want to do Av. Take Adar, which is a good month. There's another reason, and that is that the 12 months correspond to the 12 Shvatim. There's a lot of different ways of lining them up, but one of the ways of lining them up is that Adar becomes Yosef. And Yosef turns into 2 Shvatim, Ephraim and Menashe. And so therefore, if there's a month that's going to turn into 2 months, it's going to be from the koyach of Yosef, where it's going to turn into 2 months that correspond to it. Maybe since we're talking about this, I'll throw in one other idea. Every month has a mazel, what we call mazel, you call it a zodiac sign. And you know that Adar is Pisces. Maybe we'll talk about that another time before Purim. I don't know if we've ever spoken about it, but we'll talk about Mazel Dogim, which is Pisces. That's why in the Mishnichnas Adar you see the fish everywhere. That's the reason for the Mazel of Dogim. But what's the Mazel of Adar Beis? I saw calendars where they had the little Mazel, and Adar Beis they have fish again. Nope. The Chizkuni says that when it came from Milchamas Amalek, and Moshe says, B'char Anoshim, choose people. He says people who are born in Adar Sheni, because people born in Adar Sheni don't have a mazel. And since they were going to use black magic, it doesn't work on anyone who is born in Adar Sheni. So just throwing that out there. And that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can send an email. You can sponsor an episode. You can sign up for one of our online shiurim. And that's it for now. Until next time, I am Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.